What's up, everybody? So I was recently challenged to shoot an entire music video using only a slider. So I'm going to share with you my top 5 cinematic slider movements, and then we're going to dive in and show you how I apply these 5 movements to shooting an entire music video. Now, I've shot quite a few music videos in the past, and I usually either use a glide cam or a Mobi for 90% of the shots, and every once in a while I'll pull out the slider. But for this music video you're about to see, I ditched both stabilizers and used only the 42-inch Rhino slider with motion and arc. Now, people often ask me which slider I would recommend, and there are plenty of great brands out there. I've personally used quite a few, but haven't loved any until I used the Rhino slider. The reason for that is because it has a motion and arc system that allows me to set in and out points and then just let the slider do all the work for me, capturing perfectly smooth shots as long as I want. In the past, with other sliders I've used, trying to slide the camera along the track manually with my hand can be tough to get a consistent speed throughout the whole slide. So I prefer the precision of a motorized slider like this one. Now, what the arc feature allows you to do, this guy right here, is to pan the same time as you're sliding, giving you a parallax effect, making the background look like it's moving while keeping your subject in the same spot. So that's why I use and recommend the Rhino slider, and just FYI, all full-time filmmaker members get 10% off Rhino sliders. But another question I get asked is, when are some of the times that I use a slider over a glide cam or 3-axis gimbal? The main times I like to use sliders are when I need to get a very slow, controlled movement. With a glide cam or Mobi, you are subject to the steadiness of your hands or feet as you walk, but with a motorized slider, you are setting your in and out points at the exact speed you want, allowing you to get much more precise, slow moving shots. Some examples of times I'd use a slider would be when I'm trying to get a detail shot using a tighter focal length, or I'm shooting an interview where I want really slow, clean movement, or if I want some slow movement during a time lapse, this is the best tool to use. One con I will say about using sliders is it takes a bit longer to set up each shot, as I have to readjust the tripod height and it's a bit clunkier to haul around. But the biggest pro is that once you do have it set up, it's definitely easier to just watch the motorized slider do all the work for you, capturing a perfectly smooth shot the whole time instead of holding up heavy rigs during each take. So there's a bit about what slider I use and the times I like to use it over other stabilizers, but now let's jump into my top 5 cinematic slider movements. Cinematic movement number 1 is the side-to-side movement. This is the most common movement from a slider, but to make this move effective, it's best to have foreground close to your camera in order to really sell the fact that your camera is moving. If you don't have any foreground, people may not even be able to tell that the camera is moving at all. Number 2 is the push-in or pull-out. This is simply moving towards or away from your subject. The tricky part with this shot is it can be hard to keep the slider track out of the frame of your shot. So a couple tips to keep the slider track out of your shot would be to use a tighter focal length so the track is never in the shot, or put your slider on the ground and tilt the camera slightly up so that the slider is framed out, or angle your slider slightly to one side so it's a combination of a side-to-side movement with a push-in. Or lastly, you can add a letterbox in post to hide the slider. Now, within the push-in or pull-out, sometimes I will do what I call a change of focus, where I let my subject go from out of focus to into focus, or vice versa, to create a cool cinematic effect. Cinematic movement number 3 is called the parallax. This one is my personal favorite and the movement I use the most, but basically what it means is you add the side-to-side movement combined with the arc motor that pans the opposite direction that your slider is moving, and that creates the illusion that your background and your foreground are moving while your subject stays in the same spot. And again, this movement can't be accomplished with precision with most sliders, thus why I love the arc system that comes with this Rhino slider. Cinematic movement number 4 is low mode. Low mode just means that I take my slider off the tripod, put it on the ground for a lower angle, looking up. Again, if I tilt the camera up, I can usually push in and out the full length of the track without seeing it in the shot. Using a low mode just allows you to get new perspectives that you couldn't normally get with a glide cam, at least not at the same level of smoothness. The last cinematic movement is called aerial view. This is a really tricky shot to get with a glide cam or a Movi, but if you have two tripods that can go high enough, you can get slow moving shots looking straight down. And as a bonus, time lapses would be my last cinematic movement. This is less of a specific movement and more of a duration of time. You could really use any of those 5 movements and just slow down the slide to several minutes or even several hours to capture a cinematic moving time lapse. So there you have it. Those are my 5 cinematic slider movements. There are plenty of other moves you could do using a slider, but these are just the ones that I feel are most practical. But now I'm going to show you a part of the music video I shot using only this slider so you can see my top 5 movements applied to a real shoot. Check it out.
I can't lie to you. Something that should change. Hey love, hey love, hey love, can you feel me now? Hey love, hey love, hey love, can you feel me? Pick me up when I feel down. Turn around, you see me when I'm feeling down. Struggling to pick myself up off the ground. Hey love, hey love, hey love, can you feel me now? Hey love,
Now, I'm not gonna lie, I thought the final video was going to look a little boring using just a slider, but after editing together the video, I was actually pleasantly surprised at how much I liked the look of the slower, more controlled movements versus a less controlled look of a glide cam or a Movi. So I actually plan on using the slider a lot more in future music videos based off of this test I did. And you'll also notice that for the slower parts of the song, I set the slider to move across the track slower, and then as the song picked up, I started moving the slider faster to better match the energy of the music. So that was nice, being able to change the speed of the slider using the remote here to slow down during slower parts of the song and speed up during faster parts of the song to match the emotion of the video. So there you have it. Those are my top 5 cinematic slider movements. Big thanks once again to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. They are an all-in-one website designing platform whom I have personally used and can highly recommend. They have tons of professional looking templates helping you build a beautiful website in no time for your business. And you can start your free trial today at squarespace.com. And if you end up liking it, be sure to use the offer code Parker to get 10% off your first purchase. Also, if you guys would like to see my top 10 cinematic glide cam movements, you can check that out over here by watching my free 1-hour filmmaking training. And to watch the full music video, check out Form Figures. These guys are awesome. But that's it, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you have any further questions, please let me know.